Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My goodness, it's the middle of November already. My name's Julie White from Pennsylvania, Pro 7 with LifeVantage, and I'm real excited today because we have a special guest. Her name is Melody Sjoren, and she is a brand new Pro 7. So I'm really honored to introduce her tonight and just to hear her story that she's going to share with us. But she's a retired dental hygienist. She's a young entrepreneur. She's the founder of Team Reach. And both she and her husband are only 28 years old. And she's been full time with LifeVantage since August of 2018. So, isn't that amazing? And her hubby was able to leave his job as a physical therapist in January of 2020 to pursue his passion of building things. So he built a van and they traveled around the US for 10 weeks this year already. So it sounds super fascinating. And let me see here if she is, there she is. Hi, Melody. Welcome to our team Zoom here. We're Team Lifetree. And you are in the state of Washington, right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, we're thrilled to have you on here, and it's always great to see someone young and successful. I didn't realize that you were only 28 years old, but you certainly look young. But we're excited to hear about your journey. Wow, you've accomplished some great things in just 2 years, a little over 2 years. When did you actually achieve the rank of Pro 7?
Just last month, so the month of October.
Okay, great. Well, I'm just going to turn the time over to you, Melody. But
Awesome.
congratulations.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Julie, thank you for the invitation to share on your call today. And I'm just delighted to see all of you who are able to be joining today. It's always nice to see camera for those of you who are able to join with video so that I can feel like I'm talking to people and real faces. I've had the privilege of meeting Mark Harris, so he's a familiar face, and also David Meisner, and I were qualified for the Puerto Vallarta trip, and Stephanie and Stuart are good friends of mine and my husband. So it's really beautiful how the LifeVantage culture and community and family that we have here really just fosters a lot of relational connections, and it's really a joy to be able to share and give back to all of you today. So as Julie said, thank you so much for that introduction. I'll just share briefly my story and then get into maybe some nuggets that can be inspiring to you guys. So as Julie said, my name is Melody Sjoren, and I am a registered dental hygienist. And when LifeVantage was introduced to me almost 5 years ago, it was really a pretty pivotal point in our life where I had finished my college education, but was really struggling to get enough work in a saturated market. And the previous year and a half, my husband and I had been going through a medical crisis with him. And so LifeVantage was introduced to me through my dad, who's a medical doctor, when one of his colleagues and friends shared with him our incredible products. And I also had a background of being familiar with the network marketing industry. As a child, my dad partnered with a company for about 10 years promoting a health product that he saw incredible results with as people would incorporate that into their lifestyle. And as a result of that, it completely transformed my family's life. So I'm one of 9 kids, and I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters. And with my dad choosing to be a little bit more of a non-traditional doctor, he was always more service and mission minded with his approach. And so we didn't live like a doctor's family. You know, our vacations would be road trips across the country, sleeping in our van, getting to grandma's as fast as possible, eating out of the van, and just like, you know, it was definitely a life of sacrifice and giving to others more than expecting that we were just going to have this great life as a doctor's family. So what network marketing did for my family when I was really young was that my dad as a doctor had really good success. It was really easy for him to educate and promote something that he believed in because it helped people so much. And as a result of that, he actually earned an incentive trip for our entire family to Moon Palace in Cancun. And that was back in probably 2001 or two. So when LifeVantage came across my path, not only was it just such an incredible blessing to be learning about our products, but being newly married and not having enough work yet in my career, and having so many medical bills already for the medical crisis that we had been through with my husband, I literally just felt like the entire package was a gift from God, to be learning about our products and also to be able to have this incredible opportunity. So from my very first exposure, when my dad essentially was like, called me up and was like, get on this Zoom. And I really didn't have any other choice but to get on Zoom and hear the information from his friend and colleague. And in that experience, I already had names coming to mind of people who I'd want to share this information with. And I took some time and a few days to make a decision, but when I did decide to do this, I was all in. I was like platinum pack all the way. Want to get all of these products so that we can get them in our body and give them time to work. And I am a firm believer in third-party validation. I was like, the science is there. It's not a guessing game of if this is going to work. It's a matter of when will we receive the benefits. So from the beginning, I had the mindset that we were going to be taking these products for the rest of our life, and we would be sharing them with other people. And it was just a matter of timing and, when we would experience the benefits. So with the background of watching my dad do network marketing and with the background of health and wellness being a big part of my life, it really was a natural fit. But I knew that I needed to have a slightly different approach than just being the expert all the time, because that's what I saw my dad do. And then in 2008, with the economic crash, his network marketing business basically dissolved because he hadn't developed leaders. He had just essentially been a crazy recruiter, and he was doing it all. So where sometimes the attraction of network marketing is it will give you more time and things like that, that was not what our family experienced. He just completely married the whole process, which meant doing it all. And so there's been a lot that I've had to learn along the way in this journey, but I knew from the beginning, it's not so much about the efforts that I'm going to make individually, but through working with a team and growing leaders that the biggest impact will be made. And so that being said, I definitely wanted to lead by example and always be sharing and always recruiting. But as a 23-year-old, when I first started, a lot of my friends and peers did not necessarily see the value in spending money on investing in their health. So that was definitely a shift in mindset and perspective, but I knew that I would largely be kind of reaching out and connecting to people who I saw as mentors and people that I looked up to as being a lot of the people I would share with, and also people who I knew were having struggles with their health as well, just like we had been. So with that being said, really right from the beginning, when somebody would say yes to this, it would be kind of a process of just like locking arms with them and running with them in this business until they were kind of to the point of saying, this is enough, kind of, so to speak. So like, for example, with the corridor principle, that's asking people for referrals. So some of the first distributors that I worked with were referrals, where my dad really wasn't wanting to do another network marketing run. So I said, hey, Dad, do you have anyone who you think I should share this with? I want to take the business seriously. And he gave me a name of a lady, and I called her. We connected on Zoom. She ended up signing up as a distributor. And then I was like, hey, like, let's do some meetings together. And so we would do meetings together, and I would drive an hour and a half each way to do meetings with her. And it was tapping into her network. And then, you know, when a new distributor would join that group, tapping into their network. And so that's definitely been, you know, my journey is just kind of being willing to get in there and get in the trenches with people. And obviously you learn as you go. So right from the beginning, there were people I knew all around the country from just my faith and church community, connecting me with a lot of people either through missions or schooling or whatever the different scenario might be. And so in addition to driving to support semi-local distributors, also launching with the resource of Zoom was extremely helpful because it allows us to share with people who are further away. So basically, the early stages of my business were building this alongside of trying to get established with my dental hygiene career too, because I was definitely still wanting to get up to full-time hours with that. But at about the 2-year mark in our, at about the 2-year mark, with LifeVantage and with, or maybe it was 3-year mark. Sometimes the timing gets a little bit confusing. 3-year mark. Okay, it was 3 years. So 3 years into my business and 3 years into my career, my husband and I relocated to Washington for his job as a physical therapist. And to be able to work in Washington, I would have to go back to school, retake some of my boards just to be able to work in a new state. And I want you to just let that sink in for a minute, because, you know, I went to college thinking that this would provide some sense of stability or predictability or a solid, steady job. But coming out of college, I struggled to get enough hours to work. And then moving to a new state, it was like starting at ground zero again, not completely, but my license would not transfer to Washington. And so here to have something that for 3 years I had been digging on the side and like putting time into, it was a beautiful blessing, because moving across the country, we could literally make that decision of, let's just give you time to focus on LifeVantage and see where it goes with that. So before moving out to Washington, through that consistency over the first 3 years of my building my business and growing a team of the network that was distributing our incredible products and opportunities together, we were right at around that Pro 5, Pro 4 rank. And in just over a year, I'm trying to think of the timeline. Actually, it was so we moved in 2018, and then in April of 2019, right after Pro 5 Summit with Stuart and Stephanie, we reached the rank of Pro 6, and then just have continued to plug away. You know, one of the biggest things I learned from my parents and my family is the value of work ethic. You know, if you want something out of life, you have to put the work in. So whether that's a college education and going to school for 4 years or whatever it may be, if you want something different in your life, you can't expect to do the same thing and get a different result. And so where in the beginning, this was a business that had to be very much a side gig on top of other things that were filling my plate of responsibilities, in moving and just allowing it to be my sole focus. I literally treated it like a job, like, putting consistent hours into growing the business and working with the team and expanding internationally. And, some time zones are better to work with in the morning and other time zones are better to work with in the evening, and kind of establishing a schedule of those working hours. And so it's actually pretty incredible because this last year was, 2020 has been hard for all of us, and 2020 is, it hits us all in different ways. The quote by Jim Rohn, it's the way you set your sail, not the blowing of the wind, that determines where you will go. So the same wind blows on all of us, but how you set your sail is going to determine where you are going to go. And in the early part of this year, it was my goal to run for Pro 7 and qualify for the trip to Maui, the elite trip. And then had some pretty hard things happen. I actually got a concussion, and it literally knocked the wind under my feet. It literally just hit me so hard, because I'm not afraid to put the work in. I'm not afraid to, go out there and do the hard things. And yes, it's a lot of falling down, and you have to pick yourself up and plug yourself into books and personal growth and your faith and whatever carries you through. But God taught me a lot this year, because, going in thinking that I could do this big run for Pro 7 and qualify for that elite trip, the concussion and everything that happened with COVID and just change was a beautiful way that God was showing me, Melody, this is not something you're going to do in your own strength. And you have to slow down and just know that this is not something you're doing in your own strength. You want those leaders to raise up. You want those people to be able to do this without you. And not that people are going to completely do it without me, but that was a huge part of our motivation for taking the 10-week trip that we did, because I just wasn't recovering well from my concussion. Our products are awesome. I had everything I needed to heal, but I wasn't resting. I'd get on Zooms and I'm like, I'm supposed to be taking a break from technology and all these things. And instead I was, not balancing very well. And so, working on Zoom or whatever it may be for 4 to 8 hours a day after having that much of a brain injury is not the smartest idea. So that's when we decided, let's take a 10-week trip. And on the road, I stayed really connected to the team. So we kept doing 3-way calls. I would do Zooms. We would, make sure we had internet certain spots, but it reduced down to working the business more in 1 to 2 hours a day versus just constantly, putting so much into it. And so we had a really great trip. And on that trip, we actually went out and supported some of our team, because there's been different events that have been canceled. And we really felt like there was value in that connection of going and meeting with the team. So we did some meetings in about 3 or 4 different places with teams of distributors that have been really putting a lot of work into their businesses. And we wanted to recognize that and show up for them in a more tangible way than, Zoom can be sometimes. And so then we were kind of planning the course of our trip and when we would get back home. And there was some talk of getting back home mid-October. And in talking to my husband, I was like, babe, can we just get home October 1st? I was like, I really want to just have a solid month to be home and be supporting the team. And um, I was like, I feel like I'm a lot better. You know, we've been spending a lot of time outside and exercising and hiking and resting and relaxing. So let's just get home and support the team. Like there's some people who have some pretty big goals, and it would just be awesome to give back, you know? And so my thought was Pro 7 would happen in November with Black Friday sales and all of that. But as I was just focused on helping other people with reaching their goals and supporting and encouraging even Crossline to reach their goals and Upline to reach their goals, and just collaborating and running, you know, with Team LifeVantage, and really just giving more than expecting I would get. It was like the volume just kept growing, and it was like, whoa, like this is a really like big month, but also there's still so much further to go. And during the virtual global event, Carrie Dickey's breakout really struck a chord with me, because as a believer and someone of faith, I was like, if Carrie Dickey can claim that a genie in a bottle or the universe can make incredible things happen, I serve a powerful God who is way more capable of the impossible. And so with after the 25th, where there was still like an impossible number and a crazy amount of this huge goal to happen, I claimed, like, God, like, I do believe that this is possible. Like, I don't even know how, but I'm just going to believe. And then there would be days where I'm like, it was much more of a roller coaster. And sometimes, you know, with Pro 5 and Pro 6, it was like me doing so much work for it to happen. And I felt like God was just like wanting me to like step aside and be like, this is not about you. This is about you helping everyone else. And then recognizing it's all about me and my power to work in ways you don't understand and you can't comprehend, but it's possible because you believe. And so that is a huge part of my story, is just believing and just kind of recognizing that, yes, you have put in so much work. And you know, they talk about, if someone was filming you in your house, would they have proof that you're a network marketer? The answer is a big yes for me. Like, I don't need the cameras, but like the people in my life who know me, like my husband, his biggest challenge is getting me not to work. So it was actually really a beautiful gift to just see how that whole process of like having some really hard things happen this year was a beautiful way of recognizing it's not about you, it's about everyone else. And now that Pro 7 has happened for me, I don't have Pro 8 as my goal. I have executive, master, presidential, whatever Pro 10 you can put words in front of it as my goal. Because what I recognize is that this is not about me reaching my goal. It's about everyone else reaching their goal. And so why should I set my goal at Pro 8 or Pro 9 when I want everyone else to reach their goal, which is probably an incredible goal too? And so I just have so much faith that there's a world out there that needs truth. They need hope. They need what we have to offer at LifeVantage. And when we can get behind like stepping aside from like trying to have it be about us and having it be about them, that's when we really see the greatest results and the impact that can be made. So, you know, I was someone who was hurting 5 years ago, and I was struggling a lot with my purpose, my identity, my contribution, just questioning if all the decisions that I had made to bring me to a point that I thought would bring security and stability or purpose and meaning, I was at that place where I was at high noon. And the reality is, this was such a blessing for me that now at 28, both my husband and I have better health than we did at 23. And there are so many other people who have had a incredible transformation in their life as a result of the ripple effect of, stepping out of our comfort zone and sharing and blessing other people with the information we have. So if I can just leave any final words as we close up this 30-minute time training, whatever, it's that action is the best way to diminish fear, false evidence appearing real. So when you have fear in your life that this isn't working or I'm not going to be able to help someone, the most important thing you can do is get into action. We can always learn, but if we don't apply what we learn, then when are we going to make an impact? The only way that we'll make an impact is if we actually step out of that fear and out of our comfort zone, and we recognize that it's not about us, it's about the other people who were like us before we had this hope, before we had this gift. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And sometimes it changes every time I tell it, but hopefully that could be a blessing and encouragement to your team here. And I want to thank you, Julie, for the invitation to share.
Melody, that is a beautiful, beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love your heart just to make a difference and having the focus, be on all those people that you're in the trenches with and the contributions you're making to them. And, just even, the huge part that, we feel like God has directed us into this endeavor to be able to help other people. I clearly remember almost 10 years ago when I was introduced to LifeVantage. I felt the same way. So, wow. And your tip also about action is just right on. So that's amazing. Do you have a couple minutes if somebody has a question, Melody?
Sure.
Okay. So if somebody has a question, they can type it in the chat box or unmute themselves and ask Melody a question. Now, I wanted to understand something, Melody. How many years ago did you join LifeVantage?
Almost 5 years ago.
Almost 5 years ago. Okay.
It was
That's awesome.
February of 2016.
Okay. Awesome. Well, you have a lot of wisdom for a 28-year-old. I'm very impressed.
Hey, Melody, can you hear me? I'm Krista. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Krista.
I just want to tell you that was incredible. That I'm getting the recording and I'm personally going to send it to so many people. Your heart is so genuine. It's an honor and a privilege and a huge blessing to LifeVantage to have you. So you have our support. If you need anything, you let us know. We'll pray for you. We'll pray for your husband, your family, your future family. Just such a blessing to us and our team. So thank you for sharing openly and being clear about your faith. It's beautiful, beautifully done.
Yeah. Amen.
Thank you so much, Krista.
Julie, I got a quick question for Melody. Melody, this is David Meisner. I used to run cross country, and in a long race, you kind of get a sense of who's running at a similar pace, and you just run your best, and you look over sometimes and you see somebody next to you, and I've loved watching your progress, and I love your heart. I love your eternal perspective. I'm so glad and grateful that you've joined the elite ranks and you have a bigger voice now in our company. That's what I've been praying for since I've got into LifeVantage 7 years ago, is that people with voices who have an eternal perspective like you do will continue to rise up in our company. And I've loved watching you, Stuart and Stephanie. You may know they built a house. They're getting ready to move, so they're very occupied with that. I know they would love to be here. And Julie, thank you so much for recording this and making that available for them. I know Stephanie will love to hear it, and her team as well. And so I wanted to ask you, Melody, and you covered this some, but if you would just speak a little bit more to it. You mentioned that from 5 and 6, you really had to do a lot of work on your own, and I get that. I'm doing that, and to get from 6 to 7, you really have to focus on the success of other people. And I'm, I realized that several years ago. um of course, you have to have folks that are willing and want to grow. If you could speak a little bit more into that mind shift. God had to, you know to, kind of lay you down a little bit and get you to, realize that it's him and not your effort specifically. But if you could speak more specifically to how you're partnering with the Lord more, and how that has released, more uh, energy, volume in your business.
Well, I think um, this is kind of a twofold question, because I see how you're like asking it in a spiritual sense, but also like in a leadership development sense. And for me personally, I just recognize like Life Vantage is a huge passion of mine while on this earth, but it's also, temporary. So there definitely is that bigger vision for the eternal. And I mean, for myself personally, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, so I keep Saturday as Sabbath, the biblical, in the Ten Commandments. I don't personally believe that there's been a change of the day that we should worship. So I always give that day to God. And whether that's traveling to every single event, that's showing up for Friday and not for Saturday. And that's been something I've been willing to do from the beginning. And reaching Pro 7 in October, part of the reason why I thought it's going to be November was because I was looking at that calendar and Sabbath was the last day of the month. And I was like, how do you do the impossible when you're not going to work on the last day of the month? And so I think that time with God for me is so important. And actually, I've had a little bit of a shift where I am dyslexic, and I learned how to read a lot later in life. And so sometimes, people say like leaders are readers and these different comments. And even in our own spiritual walk, sometimes I think we feel like there's certain ways that we should do things, but I find that I learn best by listening. So for a lot of the books that have helped me along the way, I love Audible, I love getting CDs and things like that. And so I did have that shift in October too, where my husband has been listening to the Bible on Audible, and he's like, it's really awesome, you should try it too. Or maybe it was just his own example where I was like, I should try it too. But in October, I was listening to the Bible instead of reading it. And that was a powerful shift because it just became even more real to me to be hearing the word of God. And it actually stayed with me more than just reading it and not really internalizing it. And in our small group young adult class, we've been studying the book of Esther. And before that, we were doing Acts, and before that, John. So we were following the apostles, and then going into Acts, it was all about the early church and growth, and really how small groups were used to make an impact. And so now shifting into Esther, I've just found so many parts of her story extremely relatable. And that's been a huge inspiration to me. And actually, on the last day of the month, when we were having our small group, we were studying the book of Esther and the chapter where Mordecai specifically said, like, maybe you have come to the palace for such a time as this, so the Jews won't be destroyed. And so you can be bold and demonstrate faith. And I just got shivers, like hearing that part of that story, like on October 31st. And basically, I told Leighton before sundown, I was like, I really think God is going to have Pro 7 happen this month, because it's just going to be all the more like, this is God of the impossible, and just continuing to honor my faith and conviction and the things that are non-negotiables. And for me, from the beginning, Sabbath was a non-negotiable, because I was like, I can work as hard as I possibly can, but I need to honor God with that time and that rest and that connection for spiritual growth and family and community and service and all of that. And I know that's a lot of what we do here at Life Vantage, but for me, it needed to be an even more definite separation. But as far as leaders go, and really building up leaders, you're absolutely right. People have to want it for themselves. And after Virtual Global, some of the people that I watched Global with were like, this has been great information. We're going to hit it hard next month. And I'm like, okay, like, I heard what you're saying. You're wanting to run next month. So I'm focusing on the people who are like, we want to run now. Like, my goal is Pro 5 this month. My goal is Pro 4 this month. And so I never try to push people who aren't wanting more, but if they are wanting more, then it's giving them that time and locking arms and just, doing tons of three-way calls, doing tons of Zooms and running with them. And for me, I think that having the global event was huge, because a lot of people who maybe haven't made the sacrifice or investment to go to the events had that ability for it to be something they could watch from their home. And that really built even more confidence in our company and in what we have to offer. So I think that really did instill that we have a great company to be running with. And that definitely inspired people for sure. So I don't know if that totally answers your question, but I'm never trying to push people who aren't wanting it for themselves, but when they are wanting to run. And early on in my business, when someone signed up, if they gave 10%, I would give 90%. If they gave 2%, I would give 80%. But I've shifted, because that's not healthy. It's not sustainable. And one of the books that I read this year or listened to that helped me a lot was the Boundaries book. And that's where I think even taking the trip helped me have better boundaries. And even now, coming back home, I'm really clear with my boundaries, because I recognize if I'm saying yes to someone, I'm saying no to something else. And so now when people give 10%, I give 10%. When people give 25%, I give 25%. When people give 150%, I do my best to give 150%. And that's shifted my way of thinking, because that's not what I did in the beginning, but I've learned to, fuel fire with fire. And, anyways, I don't know if that makes sense, but I do try to really keep it where people need to be putting in that effort for themselves, for me to be investing a lot of my time and energy with them too.
Love that.
Great question, David. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melody. Thank you.
Absolutely. Renee, did you have a question?
Yeah, Melody, thank you. It's nice to meet you, and what an amazing story. And I have a daughter your age who is a distributor. So I'm also going to be sending this. Thank you, Krista, for the idea. As someone who has been building this since early 20s and out into mid and late 20s, I'm sure you've heard from your peers, I'm not interested in anti-aging. So and I heard you speak to it right at the beginning about, your prospects were mentors in the beginning, older folks. So tell me how you built, if you don't mind, kind of go through what that looked like for someone in their early 20s, working with a company that the focus is anti-aging.
Great question. So basically, I use third-party validation from the beginning. So the person who shared with my dad is, I believe, in his 50s, and I would just introduce and basically, zip it. So I did a lot of three-way calls, a lot of three-way Zooms, and that third-party validation was the golden ticket for me not needing my own story yet, for me to just be like, hey, I learned about something super awesome. I really want to introduce you to a family friend who shared some incredible information with us. Can you get on a Zoom with me so that I can introduce you to him? That kind of concept. And actually, I messed up with my own age group. With my own age group, I largely would try to just explain things myself. I did get one of my childhood friends on a Zoom with, third-party validation. And, it wasn't something she chose to take action on. But as I've grown even more confidence in our business and our products, when she was at a point where she was struggling, I was like, I know you've looked at this before. I really, really want you to just, use these products for at least 3 months. And she did. And a year after using our products, she's doing so much better, more energy, more better mood, just showing up better for herself and her family. And then she starts telling me, because this is a friend who would call me, all the time, even when I was doing the business. She basically said no. So we would still keep talking, even though it was never about LifeVantage. But she became a customer about a year and a half ago. And then, let me see, timeline wise, basically after using the products for almost a year, she was doing so much better that she's like, I have all these business ideas and I want to do this and this and this. And I was like, you do know what I do, don't you? And so then I presented the business, where initially, when she wasn't in the best space health-wise, that wasn't the time for me to share the business with her, but she needed the products at that point. And so then, after a year of being on the products, I circled back around with sharing the business idea. And she's one of the ones who has been, one of my younger friends who has joined. But a lot of the people who I worked with in the beginning were my peers' parents, my teachers in school, people who were health-minded. So I definitely knew from the beginning it's going to be harder to market what we have, with it being an anti-aging focus, if people don't already have a pain point. And so for both myself and my husband, we both had pain points, but I just try to listen for those pain points for the younger generation. And some of them aren't there yet. And when they are there, they'll come back and later say, I wish I had taken this seriously sooner, like my friend, but she also recognizes I wasn't ready to take it sooner, but I am taking it seriously now. So I think we have to respect the timing of people, and when it's their time, it might not be, the time that we would like it to be for them, but just being, mindful of that, I think, is really important. Did I do more Zooms or three-way calls? Both. I would say pretty equally. I like them both.
Absolutely. And she's saying, and do you think that they made a difference?
Absolutely. I would definitely recommend doing three-way calls and Zooms. And I think either one of those is great, because really the biggest component of that is incorporating the third-party validation. And where some people, since COVID has happened, we have more people who are willing to get on Zoom, and it's a little less awkward for them to just know that that's an app that people use. But before COVID, sometimes it was a little more fluid to just do a phone call. Now I think they're pretty comparable. And I don't necessarily have one preference over the other. I think as long as you're connecting with that person, asking them questions and sharing your story, there can usually be some kind of conversation that ensues, seeing if they have a need or pain point in their life that LifeVantage can help with.
Wow, Melody, a lot of good advice here tonight, and we just so appreciate it. So the time is kind of slipping away here. I'm thinking that we need to end our Zoom, even though it's just been a lovely time, and we've so enjoyed getting to know you, hearing your story, and hearing your wisdom and your tips. It's been awesome. So it's been a real honor. We just so appreciate having you on here. So thank you again. Does anyone have a quick announcement or anything they wanted to share before we close out tonight?
Hey guys, next week we're having app training on our Monday night call. So Frank Leon and the app team is going to be training on this. So get the word out because we need a lot more people on, because I get way more texts than 19 people that showed up tonight asking me what to do with an app. So I'd love to get everyone trained. And a lot of them are in y'all's teams. So get them on the call, because these people are going to know a lot more about the app than Mark and I or Julie are going to know about the app. So appreciative, Melody.
Isn't this LVA weekend?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Renee. It is LVA weekend, and that is a virtual event. So it doesn't have to come to your hometown to take advantage of it. Go to lifevantageacademy.com. That's $25 for the pre-registration. And if there is one in your town, you can certainly take advantage. If you are Pro 3 and up or Pro 5 and up, depending on which market you're in, there's a Friday night leadership gathering as well. And we're so appreciative of David and Matria and Christy Rollert here in Kansas City that do such a fantastic job with that. I do want to let you know, to Krista's point, we did just get an email with some brand spanking new features on our already really good app. So check those out. The email is in your inbox as we speak. And I just wanted to give you this, Melody. Thank you so much for coming on. Action is the antidote to fear. We'll just tighten that up, make that yours. Melody Sjoren. And action is the antidote to fear. You heard it tonight. First time, Melody Sjoren.
That's great.
Love it.
Love you.
Love it. Quick thing about LVA, if I can. Matri and I are talking to Michael Huey tomorrow morning. I talked to him a little bit last week. He's on a different level. Michael was phenomenal when he came to Kansas City last time, but this man is on a completely different level than he was even a year ago. And so I really encourage you to get yourselves and your team on our LVA. And we're going to be meeting in Grandview at the Holiday Inn for those of you who are in the KC area. Love y'all.
Okay. Well, that wraps it up for tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Have a great rest of the week. We love you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See ya.